Kia ora koutou. Welcome to our webinar around integrated design process. I can see a number of you are joining, so we'll just give everyone a couple of seconds to be able to click on that link and get on to the webinar. While we're doing that, I'll just share my screen. Okay, I think we will kick off. So, kia ora koutou. I'm James Griffin from the Sustainable Business Network, and it is a delight to welcome you to this webinar where we're going to be launching a resource around integrated design process so our projects can be faster, cheaper, and better. Going to start off with a karakia. Tuta mai I runga, tuta mai I raro, tuta mai I waho, tuta mai I roto, kia tu ai te mori tu, te mori ora, ki te katoa, humie, huie, tai kia. So, over the next 45 minutes or so, this is what we're going to cover. I can give you some context as to why we're here and how we got here. Then we're going to do a bit of a reflection exercise. Don't panic. It's not going to be too painful or too long, but it will help, I believe, to set the scene for going into what do we mean by integrated design process. And then we're going to get to the interesting bits, which are to see the impacts of IDP in action. We're going to hear from Jerome Partington at Jasmax, and we're going to hear from Paul Young, Twin Solutions, and Miles Healy at Construkt Architects. We'll give a sneak preview of the guide, which is now going to be downloadable from our website, and then talk about some next steps. So, what we're going to be doing, I think we'll do the reflection exercise now, and what I'd like you to do in the audience is to briefly think about your best ever project. Whatever that may be, but it would help, probably relevant if it was in the, something to do in the built environment. Just imagine yourself back in that project. So hopefully you've got that project in mind now. And then what I want you to think about is, what were the key elements that made it your best ever project? So trust me, this will it will become clear why I'm asking you to do this shortly. But yeah, just imagine yourself back there in that successful project and think about what were the elements that made it successful. Hopefully you've got an idea of what those were. And now what I'm going to do is just come out of this and see if I can, actually I might ask my colleague Jazz if she can launch a poll. Because we want to know, did a key factor to project success involve collaboration across a broad team? Yes or no is what we want to understand. Well, fairly definitive there. we're up to 97% of people are saying yes. Well, let's see what the final results were. Yes, so 97% said collaboration across a broad team was a key part of the success factor. Awesome. So we're in the right webinar. And the reason we wanted to get you to think about that is because that is effectively what we're talking about with integrated design process. So just so we know how we're defining it, it is a collective approach to design to achieve better outcomes. It involves all relevant parties working together from the very beginning of a project. In terms of, some context how we got here. So we've been working with the Construction Sector Accord for over a year now. And in April last year, we got around about 50 stakeholders across the built environment sector together to look at what were the key elements that a group, industry-led groups, could work on to really turn the dial on designing out waste. And at the top of that list was integrated design process. I mean, we have been collectively talking about and trying to act on building out waste from construction sector for a number of years. And it's still, 50% of what we throw away. And so how can we actually change, how can we intervene in the process to actually have a significant effect on reducing waste? So that's what this, we had an action group, and so we had these participants. So thank you to Jerome, Ben, Lisa, Greg, Gerard, Paul, Grant, Faye, Lizzie, and Simon, who've been working over the last year to just refine and communicate what IDP means, and importantly, how it can be implemented. And also a big thanks to the Construction Sector Accord team. So that was Jennifer Taylor and Emma Donoghue, and lately Graham Burke. So thank you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Jerome Partington, who's going to give you a bit of an overview of IDP in action. Oh, over to you, Jerome.
Kia ora koutou. Let's get these slides organized. There's that. Share screen. Is that the right one? Yep. Share. And then let's just see what happens. Okay. Can I just check, is that coming across as full screen?
That's looking beautiful, Jerome.
Fabulous. So mana watia a Matariki. Happy Matariki, everybody. It's that solstice, that Matariki time of year. It's pretty nippy in the air, but we have glorious weather and sunshine coming through. Hey. So a little bit about me. I've been in Aotearoa 21 years now, and I've always been interested in how can we deliver better performing buildings, better teams, better projects. And one of the earliest technologies I came across was integrated design process. And I've been exploring that and playing with it for some time. I seem to remember the first workshop was on the Eden Park development for the Rugby World Cup, which started in 2008. And one thing I would say, but you may not fully understand it, but I'm hoping to share just a few of the principles today and see how they apply to some case studies. But the main thing here is to give it a go, to try it, to aspire to develop your teams into better teams who are really motivated, can see more potential, and want to work to a higher level of order. Hey, so ready, fire, aim. You've probably experienced this on many projects. Clients in a hurry, the scope's been roughly defined, the contract's not quite signed, but you've just got to get going because you've agreed to a ridiculously short program of time to get concept through, to get a resource consent done because the client needs the building in a year and a half and da 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 da. And then gradually, as the design unfolds and you realize that critical things haven't been considered and people are actually pulling in different directions because they assumed one thing and you thought another, we often then run into, we add cost program issues, things get excluded, particularly those green things that I'm fond of, green technologies, etc., or high performance. Oh, we forgot to model it. There's many, many problems. We race into these things, we fire away, and then we haven't taken aim. So in actual fact, integrate, the dictionary definition of integrate is to make whole, to heal. And that's an interesting, it's an interesting word to use in the era that we're in now, where we are faced with climate change, biodiversity collapse, massive impacts on human and natural health through chemicals and waste especially. I mean, you look at plastic out there, but construction waste is a massive, massive impact. And how we create that waste stream and what we do with it is really important. But one of the things that I felt was really important when we talk about waste is that we realize that wasted human potential, people not achieving what they set out to in life, buildings that could be way, way better, that are roughly put together and have their services and plant put in much larger than they need to be just to cover a safety factor. Similarly, we make these sort of assumptions and roughly put things together. So the question is, what if our projects were designed to work like nature? And if that's a current stretch for you, how about a Swiss watch? What would that take of you? What would we have to change in order to achieve intelligence and collaboration and motivation in people to work in a different way to the ready, fire, aim methodology? And if we do, what we start to see is that the aesthetics are optimized with the performance. The cost is optimized with the quality. The program, the delivery program is optimized with well-being. And there's no or very little waste of people's will, the time, the budget, the materials, and what I would call the value of the project, the investment value that we're looking for. So integrated design is an opportunity to actually turn that catchphrase around to ready, aim, fire. And in principle, it's about taking the time to align on the values of the client, the team, the place, the purpose of the project, and actually inviting people in to be their best, to ask them what value creation means to them and ask them what collaboration means to them. Because I think, as James's poll pointed out, the collaboration, good collaboration, where we're helping each other achieve success, is actually makes the project more fun and more enjoyable, and we can do better work. So it's going to be much more satisfying. So a couple of examples that in recent years that Jasmax have used with integrated design. This was quite a fast-track project for waste management, or WM as they're known now. It's essentially a company. They have 300-400 trucks. They have an office. They have a depot for maintaining the trucks. They're electrifying a lot of them at the moment. And when they set out to create a new HQ for the business, their number one priority is health and safety, that people go home alive and well at the end of their day's work. They're really key is their brand and what that represents, the value they create for customers, for the city, etc. Really high quality workplace, valuing their people by making their working environment great. They're really interested in green building and having some stories to tell about that. And they were also interested in innovation. And interestingly, because of the complexity of the team, tenant, developer, 2 architects, one industrial, one Jasmax for the commercial office side and the hub, engineers, multiple site engineers, etc., and a very fast program. And the project manager said to me, how are we going to achieve this, Jerome? I said, well, let's slow down to go fast. Let's actually get really clear on what the client's objectives are and how we're going to work together. So we had a kickoff workshop, and the client shared their values that I've just shared with you. But then we also went around the room and asked people what their aspirations for the project were and what they, why they were excited to work on it, and invited them to be their best. And just a quick overview of the process that we used. And this, we ran essentially 3 large all-team workshops and 2 sets of what I would call focus workshops over what is traditionally concept and preliminary design period, so up to where we submit for resource consent. And the first rule of integrated design is everyone, everything, and early. So that means a lot of big meetings, a lot more early modeling, a lot more early thinking and putting options, inviting consultants to put options on the table that they can't see in the whole context, but they're interested and think might add value. And the all-team workshops is an opportunity for everybody to sort of hear that, those opportunities and those ideas and those innovations, and actually see how it works with their part of the project, be it program, be it leasing, be it buildability, be it long-term operation. And typically those focus workshops were around materials, toxicity, and building construction waste, energy performance and comfort, ecology, water, landscape. But we also had one on contracts, buildability, working with the contractor, preparing them for this build, etc. And so by the time we got to the final workshop, we had done a huge amount, a lot more work than we traditionally do up front, but we actually had a very tight and viable sort of proposal where it's starting to look difficult to take stuff away from the design. But we had a really good envelope, and we had a lot less services and plant, a huge amount of natural light and things like that. So really high quality design, really working. And one of the things that emerged is that the client really became, they attended all of these workshops. And as the more they attended and the more they understood about the process, and I'm talking here about the tenant as well as the developer, they could make better decisions. They began to get a better understanding of the challenges and the kind of the tensions that the designers faced and the engineers faced. And they could actually direct which way the decisions went, because at the end it was how did it serve them. Yeah. So this is an example of the project. This is a couple of photos of the project completed. That's the front entrance, top left, top right is an interior view of the office space and some of the meeting rooms. Very pared back services, huge amount of focus on the envelope and the quality of the glazing. And then the bottom left is a picture from the yards and the workshops back towards the office building. When the judges for the PCNZ, the Property Council NZ Awards, walked around the building, and PCNZ is a bit like the cream of the awards, because they're the actual clients. They're the people that have to deal with they take on board the effects of the design and construction industry and live with our decisions and our processes. They were asked, what would you change? Was there anything that was different? And the people were like, oh, the light switch is a bit high over here. Really, the satisfaction was huge. It was up at the 98% level. And as a result of that, this building took out the Best in Category, the Green Building Award, and also the Supreme Award. And I think fundamentally that is testament to the quality of the way that people were working on the project, and that they were inspired and that they were really supported each other to be their best. It's also a Green Star 5-star, which it easily achieved. And it has a phenomenally low energy requirement to keep the building running. And so it's met all its objectives. A really good outcome. And I think integrated design was a big part of that. But the second project I just want to touch on is a sort of different scale and a different beast. It's a build to rent residential unit. It's the first cab off the rank under the new unitary plan, which was allowing much denser development of sites. That was a 1950s villa. And what you're looking at there is 2 blocks with a central staircase and lift, and it's about 13 apartments, some shared facilities on the top, sort of coffee, laundry on the top, and decks to the road, etc. There's sort of, but what in this instance, this project's called 26 Araba, and we had a couple of workshops with all the team and the contractor really early on. And what's interesting here is that the clients really had a strong, Blair and Jules McKinnon had a really strong driver about a new model, an innovative model of living in the city, especially Auckland, that would be strongly focused on healthy community, healthy well-being, people being in relationship with each other where they lived, and also on the climate and our environmental footprint. And so the opportunity of the workshops was, again, to really explore what those values meant and what options and innovations and opportunities could be valid on this development. And similar to waste management, they had a very long sort of service life for the building. This is a high quality development, and in their minds, it lasts a minimum of 100 years, not the till 30 or 40 that buildings often do last in New Zealand. And so they were making decisions that would be serve the building, serve the community, and be climate proof 100 years, which is quite a radical way of approaching a building. So those workshops, not only do they include the architect and the services engineers and the structural engineers, the contractor, the client, but also specialist subcontractors like Solar Hot Water, Iwatech, some of the, I can't even remember now, it's quite a few years ago, but quite a few critical sub-consultants, and really that opportunity again to hear the values and hear the purpose and take aim on the project. And so what was interesting with this project, that the clients really held the whole themselves, that as this project was designed and then went through consenting and then construction, even though they had good advice and motivated consultants around them who challenged and pushed them, they were the people that sort of held the whole, if you like. They made the whole, and so that in some ways made it easier to achieve the optimal outcomes that I'm sort of describing on the screen here. Yeah, so I strongly recommend a quick visit to their website, 26 Araha. Have a look around. It is state-of-the-art build to rent, long-term rental in Auckland. And one of the outcomes that I'm really proud of is that the monthly operational costs of living in this apartment building are less than half a typical household. So your Wi-Fi, your electrical power, your hot water, your waste charges, etc., are really quite phenomenally lower. Whereas the rent is not double, the rent's just marginally more than market rent. So that's Jules McKinnon. You're seeing where the integrated organic waste stream goes into that very viable garden. And I would just say there's a lot of smiles in that project and a lot of amazing feeling as the team work together. So I think that's it. Yeah, that is it from me. And if there's an opportunity, I'll have to take any questions at the end. Thanks very much, James.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jerome, for running through those 2 projects. Really, clear the benefits that you've derived. And so with regards to questions, if people want to put questions in the Q&A, we can then, Jerome might be able to answer them sort of live while we're hearing from another project. And if not, what we'll do is there's questions we don't have time to answer. Our panelists will be able to answer them post, and we can send those out to you along with links, etc., from the webinar. So thank you again, Jerome. And now we are going to go live to Apito Bay and hear from Paul and Miles. Well, Miles, you're not in Apito Bay, but
I'm not.
But Paul is. Kia ora. Hey,
Kia ora.
thanks for joining us. And yeah, you're going to be talking about a project you're currently working on, Paul, and then how yourself and as the builder and Miles as the architect have worked together. So over to you. Maybe start with you, Paul, to introduce the
Well, I was actually going to start with Miles, I think.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Paul. We've got our act down, don't we?
Yeah, totally.
What I would say though is, sort of integrated design principles is a new term to me, but it's something I'm actually quite passionate about. I've been at Construkt Architects for 10 years, and sometimes working on quite large master plans, and sometimes working on brownfield development. And I've just got to say, thanks to Jerome and Jasmax for 26 Aroha, those projects like that do set a precedent and create a talking point. They're often so fantastic to be able to reference. I know personally I've gone back to that a couple of times and mentioned that to clients. And I think just the idea of eliminating waste, I think, there's obviously many forms of that. But one thing that we're really passionate about is not wasting key sites and really not, wasting opportunities where we do have fantastic pieces of land. So a lot of the time those conversations, as I've sort of matured in my career, I found things where we've really achieved something different have come from almost grabbing people at the end of a meeting, sometimes grabbing an engineer and saying like, hey, why do I need to do that in concrete? What, is there a reason? Like, I think just having having those conversations and the confidence to talk about some of these things, we can really achieve really positive outcomes. The Apito Bay project, which I'll get into now, I suppose, is something a little bit different to what I normally work on. But I suppose I brought the same methodology to the project. I'll just share to. Actually, that might not work for me there, but obviously a much smaller project than what I'm used to working on, but bring the same, I guess, principles of understanding the site, understanding the client, I guess the future of the project, what we're trying to achieve. And as soon as we really had a concept in place, I think it came up in one of our meetings, who's building this, and we reached out immediately to Paul, and I was quite relieved when I called Paul that he's a pretty easy guy to talk to. So we just really bounced. Initially, it was just a conversation about the cladding and roofing, and really just at that level, like what we're thinking, and to have that positivity immediately and feel like the project's been well received and just the floor's open to talk about it. That was fantastic. So it's been a pleasure working with Paul, and I'd say that is something that's been unique to this in terms of engaging with actual builders. So it's that's been great. So hopefully that's a mutual feeling, Paul.
Yeah, totally, Miles. Totally. Yeah. So hi everybody. Thanks. I think first James for giving us this opportunity. It's been being involved with this working group has been it's been a really fulfilling process so far, and hopefully this will help share some of that process with everybody. Because I remember in some of our early working group meetings, one of the key questions from Jerome was what's the main stumbling block to integrated design process, and it's interesting the differences. I mean, Jerome and a lot of people, especially in the commercial space, this sort of process is happening quite a lot already. I'm in the residential sphere, and the biggest stumbling block to us is often the client. We get involved late as main contractors, as builders, and we can't. I definitely feel that I can't add as much value late on in the project. Once once all the decisions have been made, and that is the key, I think, in the residential space for the integrated design process, is getting builder involvement early on. So it was really cool when I knew the client right from the start. So I've been talking about this project for about 3 years, and he got a really good architect involved. So when Miles came on board and we started to see some concepts, we had a couple of meetings, and one of the meetings was while I was overseas, and we all did Zoom, and the architects, both working design and Miles and myself and the client, all sat around and talked through the whole project. And my big driver that I've been seeing is the location, and especially when it's on paper, it's often hard to think about the location of the building site and what implication that has on the project. And for this site, we're in Opedo Bay. It's on the east coast of the Coromandel, out in the Little Spit. We are quite removed. So the project, the design, there's a fall to the land. It called for a block wall at the lower split level slab with a block wall at the bottom. Original thoughts were for slab on grade, but that would have meant trucking a lot of metal from the other side of from Whitianga. That adds a lot of travel cost and carbon footprint to the project. So I suggested that we could use slab on rib raft, and that would take up. So, and then I was always a big one for me is that waste, and so I'm always trying to think of more sustainable options that can cut down on waste and can be easily recycled. So that was often my thoughts was what can be added to speed up the process, what is more buildable and cuts down on waste on site, or if we have offcuts, what we can reuse. And for that,
one thing, Paul, sort of interrupt your flow there, but one thing that I think was quite poignant in respect to you being on the site and me being at my computer was when we talked about removing the polystyrene. Like, no one obviously loves polystyrene. That's, just not a thing, but it is sort of a bit of a default a lot of the time. And I mean, we're in literally a very high wind zone next to a beautiful beach. And, you can think of the on-site implication of cutting polystyrene, storing poly, so all of those things are just, I guess when you're removed and at the desk, not something you're really considering. So, being able to have that, like just even a text message that says like, let's use the plastic pods instead. Like it's, it seems obvious, but if you don't have that chat, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think if James can pop up those photos, so that's the overall view of the site we're working on at the moment. Just in one of the quick ones on this, some of the studs build up. Oh, here we go. Sorry, this is all some of this. This is the actual slab in process. So this is one of the slabs. There was two. We work with Clever Pods. Now, all the pods for this project arrived on a standard trailer. They can stack and they come on a trailer. If we were doing this with polystyrene rib raft, it would have come on a lorry and trailer. So a lot more transportation cost in that. And you can see Grant there from Clever Pod. In that pod there, that is all the offcuts that came out of cutting to fit in the pods for that slab. Those were then actually sealed up and put into the next slab, and they will then be recycled once the slab, if it ever reaches end of life and the pods are pulled out. They can all then be recycled. I think you've got one more picture there. Yeah, this is the only bits and pieces that we couldn't actually end up fitting or getting into the slab. We ran out of time at the end. So that's all the waste from a 140 square meter slab pour. If that was done out of ribraft, you'd be looking at a couple of ex-pole ribraft. You'd be looking at a couple of bags probably. So yeah,
that's a great result, Paul. And hey, because you're live on site now, is it? Do you want to give the audience a bit of a view of what you can see?
Just like to say, guys, every time I talk to Paul, it's not windy. So with the building that's currently being constructed is the first stage of this project, and it's positioned essentially to really shield a large open courtyard area. So many decisions were made around this high wind zone, and every time I talk to Paul, it's fine.
if you called me on Monday, it was a very different story.
I thought of you. I did think of you when I was riding my bike home and copping it in the face. Yeah,
very different story. So I'm not sure if you can see that. That's the site in the background. You go over there, that's the beach over there. So you can see how close we are to a pristine and marine environment. We don't want polystyrene bits flying everywhere. And over here you can see, actually, we've got our waste area separation here at the moment. We don't, you'll probably look around, there's no skips on site here. We separate everything as we go. And that is one of the other reasons we didn't cut our frames on site. We use pre-nail. I find that just reduces timber waste on site. That trailer at the moment is loaded with all our timber offcuts, which is this weekend going to go to recycling. So yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Excellent.
Thanks for sharing that view, Paul.
No worries.
Excellent. So, those are your key points.
Yep,
Wonderful.
I think so. I think it was a cool process, and Miles and I have had a lot of conversations. And we normally, if there was an issue, we were normally talking first, and then going to the client. It was better for us to go through the options and then present one option, or maybe two, for them to make a choice, rather than them being bombarded with options from us. And it's as Jerome talked about, it's that collaborative approach, collaborating on what's best for the building. It's about what's best for the house, what's going to create the best environment. And we get a good house, the client will benefit and will be happier from with the result.
Get a better outcome. And then, I mean, as simple as you're saying, Paul, get your builder involved early in the process. You know, why wouldn't you? And so that's what we're talking about in terms of use the key principles where you can of integrated design to get better outcomes. So
yeah, because I think a lot of people, especially in the residential sphere, think that if they engage a client or build it early, it's going to cost them more. Whereas I've hopefully, and I think I've saved the client money. So cutting down on timber, cutting down on waste, cheaper options, quicker. I mean, we're going to build this place, I think, in 160 square meter house, and we'll be done in 5, maybe 6 months.
I'd also suggest perhaps junior designers sometimes don't have the confidence to reach out to a builder and feel like perhaps the concept will be really sort of diminished. I just think that's not the right attitude. I think we should all be asking really early on, no matter what we're designing, is how is it going to come together, and how is it going to be built, and who is designing it. So I think just establishing that connection as early as possible is just so beneficial.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that great advice, and we'll speak soon. But I'll just finish off with some concluding slide. So I will
Cool.
share
Thanks,
my,
James.
thank you. So basically, I just wanted to refer back to, there's a quote that's in the guide from Simon Wilson, who was involved in the WM project that Jerome was referring to at the start. So, and that's, you know, is finishing off by saying that IDP is a very powerful process, but not used enough in Aotearoa. So how can we use it more and realize those benefits? Well, this is a key part of what we're trying to do as a collective, and this is why we have today we've launched this this guide to enable a very practical guide to enable everyone to be able to use the principles of IDP. It shares what it is, how IDP reduces waste, importantly, a step-by-step guide on how to implement IDP, and it contains successful case studies, some of which you've had a bit of a preview of today. So that's downloadable from now on the website, but following this webinar, we will email you with a link to that so you can download it. We also have another resource, and this is about the power of language and having a common language. So we have a glossary of terms around circular language in the construction sector, terms and definitions, some details about what scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions are, and certifications and standards. So this is, again, a useful free resource that we'll send you a link for. And for those of you in the audience who are suppliers of products, there's a guide around implementing product stewardship schemes, which again, free to download. And also we have developed via input over multiple workshops and interviews and meetings, an industry-led implementation plan for the next 5 years. It won't get us to full circularity, but it will provide a significant basis to get this sector into a better shape in terms of reduction of waste. It looks at what we can do across those 7 points of intervention, from design, procurement, what business models we use, on-site and off-site operations, the infrastructure, how technology plays a part, and legislation. So, of course, a plan is pretty useless without action. So please do take the action that that's outlined there. So in terms of next steps, please do download these resources. And importantly, share your progress. We love to tell success stories. Can your project be a case study? Could it be an award winner? We'd love it to be so. We are continuing on the work with the IDP Action Group. We're going to expand that group. If you're interested in getting involved and contributing, please do email me, james@sustainable.org.nz. So again, and finally, if you're not already signed up to our newsletter at SBN, please do so. Lots of stuff happening, lots of news, events, so that will enable you to find out what's going on. So once again, I'd just like to thank everyone for spending their 45 minutes of their lunch break
hey, James,
contributing. Yes?
Should we answer those 3 questions?
Well, I'm just conscious, Jerome, that we are sort of on time
4 minutes
to finish. So what we can do is we will basically get those questions answered and then email them out with follow-up. What I'll do now is I will just close off the webinar, closing karakia. Unahia, unahia ki te uru tapunui. Ke wātia, ke mama, tēnā kau. Te tinana, te wairua, ki te ara tangata, koirare rongo, whakarehia, ake ki runga. Kia tina, huie, tai kia. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon.